Hello, LPES, and happy Friday. Happy Friday feeling. It feels like it's been a while since we had a Friday feeling on an actual Friday, so this is exciting. Today's topic is going to be all about worry. It's a little bit of a longer one. We're going to start off our Friday feeling with kind of talking about what worry is, how we can work through our worries, our nervousness, our anxiety, and then I have a story to share with you at the end that is one of my favorite books for talking about this topic that I think will hopefully help all of you. The book is called Worry Says What? And I love this story because, truth be told, I use it with kindergartners that come in my office, but I also use it with fourth graders. And if I could give a copy to every adult I knew, I probably would, because it is such a great book for helping us think about those worries that we all have, from the time that we're 3 years old to the time that we're 103 years old, and the ways that we can kind of deal with those worries together and to be a little bit more successful in dealing with those. So let's start off by bringing up some pictures. I'm going to bring up some slides on my computer, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about this topic together. Let's go ahead and start by talking about what is worry. So when someone says that they're feeling worried, it could mean that they're feeling nervous, anxious, or stressed. Now, when we think of someone feeling worried, we often think of this guy in the bottom left corner of your screen, kind of biting his nails, looking really nervous. But really, when someone's feeling worried or experiencing anxiety, it can look like any of these different pictures, with someone kind of being really hard on themselves, someone being really angry, someone even looking happy or calm. They might still be experiencing worry or nervousness or anxiety inside. We can't always tell what people are feeling from the outside. And worry is the feeling that we have when we think something bad might happen. And it could be things that probably won't happen, things that are almost impossible to happen, but they still are overwhelming our thoughts. And a lot of time, this kind of worry comes as what if thoughts. So we have some examples here. What if they laugh at me? What if someone gets hurt? What if I fail? I want you to think for a moment and think to yourselves, what kind of what if thoughts do you have sometimes? What are ones that maybe repeat themselves over and over again in your mind? And how realistic are they? I always like to use the example when I'm talking to kids about worry that we could sit and worry that a tsunami, a big giant wave from the ocean was going to crash down on our school, but the chance of that actually happening is nearly impossible because of how far away we are from the ocean. So sometimes these what if thoughts are things that are absolutely absurd or absolutely unbelievable and probably would never actually happen. And sometimes we might also worry about things that have already happened in the past. It's like when our brains can't stop thinking about something that happened earlier and we worry that it was bad, or we start to worry what might happen next. And this could also look like replaying things that have happened. So maybe you had a fight with a friend and it was yesterday or 2 days ago or even a week ago, and you keep playing that fight over and over in your mind. That's a version of anxiety. That's a version of worry. We're replaying that uncomfortable moment over and over and over again and thinking about maybe what we could have done differently or what was really wrong in that moment, thinking about how it made us feel and feeling that same sensation over and over again. Sometimes we don't even know when we are worried. We just know that we feel upset or icky or that something just feels wrong. So we see in this picture, a boy looks like he's having a really bad stomach ache and he goes to the nurse. And the nurse says, "I don't think that you're sick. Is there anything you've been worrying about?" And this happens so often with all of us, kids and grown-ups alike, where maybe our body feels really wrong. Maybe it feels like we have a stomach ache, feels like we're going to be sick, or maybe it feels like we have a headache, and that makes us start feeling really nervous or worried, and we don't even know what we're feeling nervous or worried about. It's just kind of showing up in our body in that way. Our worries might show up in our body in a bunch of different ways, and they are clues in how we physically feel that can tell us that we might be having some anxiety. So we have on this little poster here, breathing, heart, muscles, and stomach. Our muscles could start feeling really tight. I know if I'm working on something and I'm feeling really stressed or nervous about it, sometimes I'll pause for a moment and realize my shoulders are all tight and scrunched up by my ears. Sometimes it can seem like there are butterflies in our stomach, which doesn't mean actual butterflies. It just means that our stomach feels like it's in knots. And sometimes our hearts might feel like they are pounding or going super fast. And our faces or our bodies might suddenly feel hot, even if it's not terribly warm in our classroom. Our breathing might start to be really quick and shallow, almost like you just ran the mile with Mr. T. Or some people might feel like their chest is heavy, like an elephant is sitting on them and kind of crushing down on them. So I want you to pause for a moment. Think about a time that maybe you were feeling worried, and how did your body feel during that time? There's no right or wrong answer to this. All of our bodies might respond differently, and that's perfectly okay. And some of you might not even feel any of these things when you feel nervous or worried. You might feel something totally different, and that's all right. Worry and fear are not bad feelings. There's no such thing as bad feelings. I always like to say that to students. There's never such a thing as bad feeling. All of our feelings are totally okay. In fact, fear or worry can actually be helpful. Fear is when a part of your brain called the amygdala, that guard dog that we've talked about in the past, says, hey, you're in danger, act fast to keep yourself safe. But when you're not in any danger and your brain is super worried, it hurts you instead of helping you. Not physically hurts you, but it might make you feel really uncomfortable and make you feel that nervousness or anxiety. You might freeze and not do anything at all. You might get snappy and rude with others, or you might try to escape and be alone. So if you remember, friends, a few weeks ago, maybe even months ago at this point on Friday Feels, we talked all about the amygdala, the guard dog part of our brain, and how its job is to keep us safe. But sometimes, just like a regular dog, we think we're in danger when we're not. I always like to use the example of a real dog barking at the Amazon delivery guy. Even though there's no danger, our dog sometimes thinks there is and starts barking and acting like something is wrong. The same thing happens with the amygdala, the guard dog part of our brain. Sometimes that dog starts barking so loudly because it thinks something is wrong, but in reality, we're just facing a tough question on a test, or maybe we're having a small argument with a friend. So, what can I do about worry? The good news is, with all of this, there are things that we can do to feel a little bit better when we do feel worried or anxious or nervous. Number one is really simple. Realize that you are worried. Just by simply saying to yourself, I'm feeling really worried right now, or I'm feeling really nervous about something, or I'm feeling anxious, is going to help take some of that emotion away. Number two, breathe. Now, this sounds easy, but it's hard to do in the moment because when we're feeling that anxiety, that nervousness, that worry, sometimes our breaths get really short and it's hard for us to control them. So we really need to focus on it in those moments and do something like 5-finger breathing or circle breathing or square breathing or any of the different kinds of breathing that we've done over the years. Cookie breathing, when we pretend to smell the cookies and blow on them to cool them down. Number three, tell someone about it. Somebody that we trust, like a grown-up, our parents, our teacher, our school counselor, or our friends. Or, number four, stop and change your thoughts. This is a really big one we're going to talk about more in a moment. So as you notice you're feeling worried, take at least one slow, deep breath in. And this usually helps to start calming us down right away. And what is a slow, deep breath? Breathing in slowly through our nose, pausing, and then breathing out through our mouth, just like we practice on a lot of these videos. Or you can try 5-finger breathing. If you notice your brain is spinning and you feel a little panicked, try looking around and naming 4 different things that you see. You can do this quietly to yourself in your mind. You don't have to disrupt the class or your teacher or your parent. You can just kind of do this for yourself and think about those things as much as possible. It's going to help reset your brain a little and make that guard dog calm down. Now, changing the thoughts in our brain is important too. The things we think in our head have a huge impact on how we feel. So we have 2 examples here. No one will ever want to be my friend again, or I'm going to get in so much trouble. And I love that we have a remote control picture here because we're actually going to try and change the channel or change the way we're thinking. But our thoughts are actually a cycle. So you can see these 3 arrows on our screen, one pointing to the next, pointing to the next. Our thoughts decide how we feel. And then how we feel decides how we act. And then how we act decides what we're thinking about all over again. So if the whole time we're thinking about I really made a mistake with my friends and I'm never going to have friends again. Then we're going to start to feel worried, nervousness, our heart might start racing. That might make us shut down, or it might make us start to lose control of ourselves. And then those thoughts are only going to increase. The way we have to fix this is by breaking that cycle. Almost think of it like we're breaking one of those arrows apart so that it's not continuing to point from one to the next to the next. It's also helpful to tell someone that you're worried and what you're worried about. Actually, pause. I'm going to rewind for a minute. One way we can easily break this cycle is changing our thinking. So when we talk about those positive affirmations, those wonderful things that you guys put on those papers that are all around our hallways, those positive affirmations are ways that we can help break that cycle. If you change your thought from the negative of, I'm not good enough, I have no friends, I'm never going to be able to get this, to something positive, that's going to start changing that cycle and breaking it so that we're not just stuck in this loop of thinking a really negative thought that's making us feel nervous, and that's going to make us feel really bad in our emotions, and that's going to make us have a really bad reaction or action to those emotions. So we can start talking back to our worries just like the girl does in our book that I'm going to read you in a minute. And of course, it's also helpful to tell someone that you're worried and what you're worried about. As I said, a friend, a teacher, a parent, saying it out loud to them, or you could even just write it down in your journal or on a piece of paper. And sometimes getting it out in this way can just help those feelings to feel a little less intense. Okay, my friends, so I hope that all of that helped us to learn a little bit more about worry and what it feels like. Worry, nervousness, anxiety, all of those feelings are kind of wrapped up in the same idea or the same emotion. And hopefully we learned a little bit more about how we can kind of control those and what we can do to stop those feelings when they happen, or to at least sit it out and wait it out until the emotions change to something else. I always like to compare it to the weather, because if we think about the weather outside, even when it's gloomy, even when it's rainy, we know it's never going to be that way forever. Eventually the sun will come out again. And the same thing happens with our emotions and our feelings. Eventually, we're not going to feel exactly the same way. It might not go completely to being happy, but those feelings will lessen, or they'll become different in some way in the near future. So I want to read you one of my favorite books all about worry. If you've ever come down and talked to me about worry, it's possible I've shown you this book, because it is one of Mrs. Heffler's favorite stories for dealing with worry and for helping us to feel a little bit better about it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read this to you, and you could just kind of pay attention and think about the parts of it that you relate to. It's called Worry Says What, written by Allison Edwards, illustrated by Aisha L. Rubio. Worry says what? There's a place inside my brain where worry likes to set up camp. In the back, far out of sight, I hear him putting up tent poles and chopping wood for a fire. He hums a little tune while he's working. Worry's song ties my tummy up in knots, and the things he says make my heart beat very fast. Ba-boom, 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 just like we talked about. Sometimes he speaks in a whisper, and other times his voice gets so loud I can't hear anything else. Like when I take a math test. At first, Worry whispers, "It's too hard." Then his voice gets louder, so loud I can't even think. I try to concentrate, but Worry keeps saying over and over, "It's too hard. You can't do it. You'll never get it right." Maybe Worry is right. I don't know how to do this math. I lay down my pencil and watch as everyone else finishes their test. When I want to play with the other kids at recess, Worry starts talking as soon as I walk towards them. I try to hum to myself so I can't hear what he's saying, but Worry's voice drowns out mine. First, Worry says, "They don't like you." Then Worry begins singing his own song. "They think you're weird, dee dee dee, you'll never fit in, la la la, they don't want to play with you, da da da." When I try to do a back handspring in gymnastics, Worry starts up again, his voice booming and constant as I walk onto the mat. Worry insists, "You're not strong enough. You'll fall. Everyone will laugh at you. You're gonna get hurt." Maybe worry is right. Maybe I should stop trying. I go to the edge of the mat and watch my friends do round-offs and cartwheels without me. When I crawl into bed at night and shut my eyes, I hear Worry's voice again. He whispers, "You're not safe." I listen closely to the noises in the house as Worry asks, "Do you wonder what's making that sound? Is there something in the closet? What's that shadow on the ceiling?" And I'm too scared to sleep. Tired from all the worrying, I confront him. "Will I always be afraid?" "You will if you keep listening to me," Worry says. The truth is, listening to Worry is ruining my life. He never makes me feel better. He always makes me feel worse. And right then, I decide one thing. I am done letting Worry be the boss of me. And you can see Worry's face suddenly goes, "Oh no." He knows he's in trouble now. The next day, I get up, and instead of waiting for Worry to talk to me, I start talking to Worry. As I walk to school, I tell Worry it's time for him to go. Every time he tries to talk to me, I ignore him. In a voice clear and loud, I tell myself what is true. When I walk into math class, I say, "I can do hard things." It's one of my favorite ones to say, right? I can do hard things. As I raise my hand to solve the hardest math problem, Mrs. Johnson puts on the board. When I go outside at recess, I say, "I have lots of friends." And I ask Lily if she wants to swing with me. When I walk into gymnastics, I say, "I believe in myself." My first back handspring doesn't go so well. And I hear Worry suddenly right behind me. "See, I told you, you can't do it." I look right into his eyes and yell, "I can't yet, but I will." And I keep doing them over and over until I master the back handspring. Then I head to the balance beam because I can do anything I put my mind to. That night, when I'm getting ready for bed, I declare, "I am not afraid." Worry says, "What? I didn't hear you." I say it again, even louder this time. "I am not afraid." Do you notice anything about Worry's size from the beginning of our story to now? So much smaller, right? The more we talk to those worries and try to fight against them, or at least say things that go against them, smaller and smaller they become. "Well, then I'll find someone else who will listen to me," says Worry as he packs up his tent to leave. And I realize how much smaller he's gotten. I know he'll be back again, and I'll be ready. Every now and then, I hear Worry chopping wood for his fire and putting his tent poles together. Before he can even get settled back in, I sing a little song just loud enough for him to hear. "I can do hard things, da-da-da-da-da. I have lots of friends, la-la-la-la-la. I believe in myself, do-do-do-do-do. I am not afraid, ha-ha-ha-ha-ha." Worry says what? Worry says nothing. So boys and girls, this is one of my favorite stories about worrying. I don't know if I've done it on Friday Feels before. I hope I haven't. If I did earlier in the school year, it's great to hear it again because it is such a good story, and I think it's something everybody deals with at some point in their life. At some point, we have a worry that is hard to let go of. But she has a few tricks, doesn't she? And the big trick that this girl uses in the book is talking back to her worry. She has a sentence to fight against whatever negative thing he's going to say to her. And she knows that if she repeats it over and over again, before he even starts talking, that's going to help make worry get smaller and smaller and smaller until, poof, he goes away. Now, the other thing I like about this book is at the end, it says, I know worry will be back again, but I'll be ready for him. The book isn't trying to tell us that our worries will go away forever and ever, because the truth is they won't. As we get older, you might have more things to worry about. As you become a grown-up, you might have a lot of things to worry about. But this book does help us in thinking about the ways that we can deal with them. One other way I like to deal with my worries when they happen, which they do a lot, is I like to remind myself that they're just thoughts. When we're worrying about something, it can feel so real to us in that moment, like it's an actual, real, live monster, just like worry looks like in this book. But the truth is, worry isn't actually a monster. Worry isn't actually anything. It's just the thoughts going on in our brain. Kind of like that amygdala guard dog that we keep talking about. So if we recognize that, and if we say to ourselves, this is just a thought, it's not real, it's not reality, it's not something that has actually happened yet, or if it happened in the past, it's not something I can control right now, that can kind of help us to release it and move on from it a little bit quicker. So I hope we learned some ways of coping with our worries, our anxiety, taking deep breaths, acknowledging that we're feeling worried, talking to someone about our worry, and also fighting against our worry with a positive affirmation or a positive sentence. And, so many tools I'm giving you today. I know it's a lot to remember. Last one, reminding ourselves this is just a thought. It's just a thought, and it's not real yet. Because many of our worries may not even end up happening. All right, LPES, I hope you learned a little bit more about worry today and ways that you can deal with your worries. And as usual, I hope, my friends, that you can all stay kind, LPES. I'll see you soon.